In this Diablo 4 video, I'm going to be showing you my Shadowblade build. This is a level 50 plus build that's aimed at World Tier 3 and is an upgraded version of our Twisting Blades build that we showed you earlier. So this build takes from where our beginner build left off and uses the additional skill points to increase our energy acquisition, increase our damage, and most importantly, increase our survivability. We'll be swapping our specialization, but none of the active skills will change, and we'll just focus on passives to further increase our efficiency and to achieve almost 100% uptime. This build still works the same way. You want to spam Twisting Blades in the first enemy you face until you run out of energy, then reposition yourself behind or even in the middle of a group of enemies, and wait for the blades to return to restore your energy and repeat the sequence. One of the biggest changes when compared with the previous build is that we'll swap our specialization from combo points into preparation. The preparation specialization reduces your ultimate's cooldown by 4 seconds for each 100 energy you spend, so you'll be able to recover your ultimate very quickly by just spamming Twisting Blades. And also, thanks to the Aftermath passive, you'll now be able to almost completely restore your energy as soon as you cast your ultimate, giving you many different options. You can use the ultimate before a big pack of enemies and then go in and spam Twisting Blades as much as possible, and you'll often get your ultimate back before you engage in the next fight. You can also just as easily save the ultimate for fighting elites and bosses, as you tend to run out of energy and your ultimate will allow you to restore it, thus resetting your combo from the start. Another great change is that you'll now be able to freely use Shadow Step to reposition thanks to its upgrade and to the Ravager's aspect. As you progress towards level 50, there will be 3 main aspects that you'll want to resolve regarding your build: energy recovery, damage output, and survivability. Enemies will become much stronger at tier 3 and you'll probably struggle to stay stationary while attacking, so make sure you have enough survivability advancing in difficulty. We'll be mainly using passives to increase our damage output. From our skills, we'll want to have Weapon Mastery, Exploit Malice, and Precision Imbuement. As for our active skills, you can use Shadow Step into an elite or boss to increase your critical chance against them, and dash over them to increase the actual critical strike damage they take. Enemies will hit much harder on later difficulties, and you'll need to be able to survive while you're stationary, impaling blades into them. The Momentum Key passive provides a huge boost to survivability thanks to the 20% damage reduction and 15% increased movement speed. On top of that, you'll also get 30% energy regeneration. You'll be constantly hitting enemies from behind, so this will be constantly active during fights. The Sturdy passive will further increase the damage reduction, while the Siphoning Strikes passive will provide you with health regeneration from your critical strikes. Last but not least, the Agile passive provides you with 12% dodge chance for 4 seconds after using a cooldown, so Dash, Shadow Step, and Shadow Clone will allow you to prevent some attacks from hitting you. The main way to deal damage with this build is by spamming Twisting Blades, and the only limitation for that is energy. As previously stated, the Momentum Key passive will give you a flat 30% energy regeneration increase, but on top of that, you'll want to get the Innervation passive, which gives you a 30% chance to gain 8 energy on a lucky hit. This passive is massive for us, since all of our skills have a lucky hit chance, including both Twisting Blades and Shadow Imbuement. On top of that, Shadow Step has 100% lucky hit chance, so you'll be constantly recovering energy while attacking enemies. You want to further increase the chance of this happening by getting the Second Wind passive as well, which increases your lucky hit chance. There are a couple of aspects that are key to make this build work, but all of them can be acquired from the Codex of Power. The other aspects are nice to have, but you can wait until later on to acquire them if you like. The must-have ones are Blade Dancer's aspect. You should have this from the original build. The Orbiting Blade is a must to make this build work. You can get this from the Codex of Power by completing the Jalal's Vigil dungeon in Ska's Glen. The next one is Aspect of the Protector. This aspect provides you with a barrier when you damage an elite enemy. This is a must-have, as it'll allow you to stay stationary without dying, enough time to set up your Twisting Blades. This aspect can be acquired by completing the Lost Archives dungeon in Fractured Peaks. Next is Aspect of Corruption. This greatly increases the potency of your Shadow Imbuement, greatly increasing your damage. You should slot it into your two-handed ranged weapon for 100% increased effect. You can get it by completing the Renegade's Retreat dungeon in Kyrgyzstan. Next is the Ravenous aspect. This aspect greatly increases our energy regeneration when defeating vulnerable enemies, which is all of the time. You can get it by completing the Shifting City dungeon in the Dry Steppes. And the last must-have one is Mother's Embrace, which is a unique ring. This ring is perfect for our build as it refunds the cost of our Twisting Blades as long as they hit 5 or more enemies. You'll get this ring as a guaranteed drop from finishing the main campaign. Nice to have Codex of Power aspects are Aspect of Unstable Imbuments. This is really nice to use as an AoE imbuement explosion while in the middle of packs of enemies. You can get it by completing the Whispering Vault dungeon in the Dry Steppes. Another one is the aspect of Imitated Imbuement. This makes it so your Shadow Clone applies the Shadow Imbuement to its skills as well as increasing its damage. It's very useful against both bosses and big packs of enemies, but you have to get it as a drop from enemies. Next is Aspect of Might. If you're struggling with surviving bosses or enemy packs, you can use this and use a regular attack in between your Twisting Blades to further increase your damage reduction. This can be acquired by completing the Dark Ravine dungeon in Dry Steppes. And lastly, we have the Vengeful aspect. This will greatly increase your critical strike chance, allowing you to stack up even more damage. You can get it by completing the Inferno dungeon in Kyrgyzstan. And lastly, great to have but are very lucky drops are the Ravager's aspect. This adds a charge to Shadow Step, providing you with even more mobility on the battlefield, and if you actually kill the enemy or minion, for example, it'll refund a charge. Protecting aspect. This creates a bubble that makes you immune for a certain period. This is great, and you'll have the opportunity to spam as many Twisting Blades as you want without having to worry about the enemies. You'll get an amulet with this effect during the first part of the main campaign. Aspect of Quickening Fog. This will help you with crowd control as well as decreasing dash cooldown, making it great for mobility and helping to get you into a couple of Twisting Blades before enemies can even react. And lastly, Grasp of Shadow Sacred, which are unique gloves. If you're lucky enough to get these gloves, they'll greatly increase your damage output as they synergize perfectly with this build. When it comes to gear bonuses, you'll obviously want to prioritize energy, survivability, and damage, and you can see the ones that I recommend on the screen. Obviously, you probably won't get all of these on your equipment, but you can try and use enchantment to get some of these, and these are the ones you want to be on the lookout for as you progress through 50+. When it comes to gems, you'll want emeralds in your weapons, because this greatly increases your critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. You want rubies in your armor for maximum life, helping your survivability. And on your jewelry, you'll add elemental resistances that you're lacking. For example, if you have low lightning resistance, you should slot topaz, and so on. If all of them are even, then use diamonds, but you want to try and keep these as even as possible. When you reach level 50, you'll unlock your first Paragon board, and you'll start earning Paragon points. On the first board, you should focus on the right part to get the prime rare node, which further increases your damage and gives you maximum life. From there, continue up and get all 3 of Socket and the 2 other rare nodes. If you happen to find it, you should slot the Efficacy glyph into the socket and try to allocate at least 25 intelligence around it so you get the additional bonus, which increases the potency of your imbuement skills. Try to get as many dexterity nodes as possible, but also make sure to fulfill the socketed glyph requirements on its radius in order to get its additional bonuses. Once you reach the top, you'll have to decide what Paragon board to go for. I recommend the first board called Eldritch Bounty, as its legendary node will further enhance your imbuement skills. Final tips. Shadow Step is fantastic when fighting bosses because it teleports you right behind them, completely avoiding most of their attacks. Make sure to always have at least 1 charge available to prevent being hit by their skills. Also remember that you'll have a 12% dodge chance because of the Agile passive each time you cast it. For tough enemies or bosses, when you are left one-on-one, remember to attack with Invigorating Strike while you're below 50% energy to apply the invulnerable status. I recommend using the Assault Elixir as it increases attack speed, allowing you to stack Twisting Blades faster, but if you're running dungeons with specific enemy types, you might want to change into an elixir that boosts damage against that specific enemy type. I recommend casting Shadow Clone before engaging a big pack of monsters instead of waiting until there's only 1 elite left. Shadow Clone lasts for 15 seconds, which should be more than enough time to deal with both the elites and regular enemies, and all of that energy you spend will greatly reduce its cooldown. Another great tip with Shadow Clone is to use the Shadow Step when fighting a single elite or a boss. This will ensure your clone is in the right position to deal damage. Make sure to use dash to pass through enemies and not only use Shadow Step, as this will increase the amount of critical damage they take. And lastly, when fighting bosses, save your ultimate for when you run out of energy. Shadow Clone will reset all of your cooldowns, restore your energy, and provide you with Unstoppable, essentially resetting your full combo. Make sure to spend all your energy and use Shadow Imbuement before casting it to maximize efficiency. So that wraps up our Shadowblade build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have questions about the build, let me know in the comments below. We have more build guides coming, so stay tuned for those.